Welcome back to the Mindful Metrics podcast. Today we're diving into a topic that feels particularly relevant in our volatile, fast-paced world: how we manage our internal dialogue, especially when things go wrong, in investment fails, a project tanks, or we just feel overwhelmed. We often assume the path to success is paved with relentless self-criticism. But what if that internal dictator is actually sabotaging our resilience and our ability to make rational decisions?
That's a good point, A. Most people are completely unaware of how aggressively they talk to themselves in moments of failure. It's something we would never, ever say to a friend, but we allow that voice free rein in our own heads.
Exactly. To help us unpack this, I'm thrilled to introduce our guest today, Dr. Alara Vance. Dr. Vance is a psychologist and a leadership consultant specializing in psychological capital and long-term resilience. Alara, welcome to the show.
Thank you, A. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's start with the central idea from the research: self-compassion. For many listeners, that phrase might conjure up images of weakness or self-indulgence. What is the modern, rigorous definition of self-compassion that we need to understand?
That's a crucial distinction to make. This isn't about letting yourself off the hook. We're talking about the scientific definition, pioneered by Dr. Kristen Neff. She defines it as a robust, three-dimensional psychological construct. Think of it less as being nice to yourself and more as being a highly effective, non-judgmental coach.
A non-judgmental coach. I like that. What are the three pillars of Neff's model?
They form a very strong, comprehensive framework, almost like a diversified investment portfolio against emotional risk. First, you have self-kindness versus self-judgment. When you suffer, do you respond with harsh criticism? You're an idiot, you should have known better, or with warmth and understanding? Self-kindness is the emotional stimulus package your mind needs. The second is shared humanity versus isolation. When we fail, our ego tells us, this only happens to you. Shared humanity is the realistic understanding that suffering and imperfection are universal experiences. It connects you to the collective.
And that third one, which is perhaps the most practical, is mindfulness versus over-identification. This is the practice of observing your painful emotions without becoming fused to them. It's the difference between feeling sadness and thinking, I am sadness.
That third one is so powerful. We often catastrophize. We don't just have a bad trade, we think, I am a failure. Let's dive deeper into the first pillar, self-kindness, particularly in the professional and financial context. How does being harsh on ourselves actually hurt our bottom line or our career trajectory? It actively depletes your cognitive resources. Imagine you make a bad investment decision. If you unleash that relentless self-criticism, your mind immediately goes into a threat response. That's the fight-or-flight system. It consumes the mental energy you need for clear vision, strategic analysis, and objective evaluation. You've essentially put yourself in a stress debt.
So by being internally punitive, we make it harder to learn from the mistake and fix it. We become blinded by shame.
Exactly. Self-kindness, in contrast, activates the body's natural calming system. When you pause and say, this is difficult, it's okay to feel bad, what can I learn? You liberate those mental resources. You get back in the game quicker with a sharper strategy because you haven't wasted 48 hours fighting yourself.
That's fascinating. And how does the concept of shared humanity play out in, say, a volatile market downturn? Because when the market crashes, it feels deeply personal.
It does. The sense of isolation makes you feel like you're the only one losing money, which triggers panic. But if you anchor yourself in shared humanity, you realize volatility is an inherent market characteristic. This isn't a personal attack on me, it's a global phenomenon studied by economists and institutions.
That reframing must drastically reduce the emotional charge. It turns a unique personal tragedy into a universal challenge.
Precisely. It's like geopolitical diversification. By acknowledging that challenges are global and universal, you stop taking them as personal failures. It allows you to move away from shame and toward acceptance, which is the prerequisite for productive action.
Let's talk about the decision-making element, which ties into that third component, mindfulness. We know from Daniel Kahneman's work that decisions made under high emotional stress are riddled with cognitive biases. If I'm over-identified with my fear after a market drop, I'm more likely to panic sell, right?
Absolutely. Over-identification leads to impulsive, reactive decisions. often driven by a need to cover up the shame or stop the pain immediately. This is what we call capitulation in finance, materializing a loss at the absolute worst time.
So self-compassion, by promoting mindfulness, essentially acts like a psychological filter that reduces bias.
It creates that vital psychological space. Mindfulness is observing the emotion. Here is the fear, I observe it and let it pass, rather than being swept away by it. This space allows for productive counterfactual thinking, like, what should I have done, instead of the destructive thought, why am I such an idiot? That shift from blaming identity to evaluating strategy is the entire game.
That's the professional resilience metric right there. The speed of recovery. It's not about the absence of failure, but how quickly you can get back up, pivot, and learn.
Exactly. If you judge yourself severely for a business closure or a layoff, shame causes you to hide the facts and consequently the lessons. Self-compassion allows failure to become actionable data for the next attempt. It turns shame into a learning metric.
I think listeners are going to need some concrete ways to start practicing this. It sounds like a long-term skill. What is one simple daily strategy people can use to build this psychological capital?
The most effective one, developed by Dr. Neff, is the 3-minute self-compassion break. It's perfect for moments of acute stress, like receiving a tough email or seeing a portfolio drop.
Walk us through it.
It has 3 steps, corresponding to the 3 components. Step 1 is mindfulness, 30 seconds to pause and acknowledge the suffering. Say to yourself, this is a moment of suffering. Just observe the pain, don't judge it. Step 2 is shared humanity, 1 minute. You remind yourself, suffering is part of life. I am not alone. Everyone struggles in this way. Feel your connection to the collective human experience. And step 3 is self-kindness, 1 minute 30 seconds. You gently place a hand over your heart or on your cheek. Ask, what do I need to hear right now? And respond with a phrase of support, like, be gentle with yourself, or I can be patient.
That simple physical gesture, the hand over the heart, is a very quick way to trigger the calming system.
It is. Another quick tactic I love is the error is data reframe. When you make a minor mistake, a typo in an email or dropping something, change the phrase from I messed up to I have new data. It instantly transforms it from a personal judgment into objective information for improvement.
That is the very foundation of a growth mindset, isn't it? Changing the narrative from I am flawed to this data point is useful.
It is, and in the long run, this practice acts like compounded interest for your psychological capital. Every act of kindness towards yourself, every time you choose understanding over punishment, is a reinvestment in your emotional energy. That compounded interest translates into greater recovery capacity, less burnout, and more stable motivation over the long haul. Consistency, built on this stable foundation, is the true secret behind sustainable success, both professionally and financially.
Alarna, this has been incredibly insightful. We've moved self-compassion from a vague, soft idea to a rigorous strategic asset. The takeaway for me is that the promise of self-criticism is perfect performance, but the reality is often paralysis and reactive decisions. The promise of self-compassion is unshakable resilience.
That's a perfect summary, A. Always remember, your value is not conditional upon your achievements or your bank balance. It's intrinsic. By treating yourself with the dignity and respect you would treat a loved one, you free up an immense amount of mental energy that was previously dedicated to that exhausting internal conflict.
A powerful thought to end on. Dr. Alara Vance, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us on mindful metrics.
My pleasure, A. Thank you for having me.
And to our listeners, we hope this conversation inspires you to stop being your worst critic and start becoming your firmest ally. We'll be back next week with more tools for managing your mind and your metrics. Until then, be kind to yourself.